my name is Ankush. I'm currently pursuing Masters in Software Engineering at CMU. I just completed 3 semesters over here. My summer semester just ended yesterday. And before this, I was working at Salesforce in India in Hyderabad as a software engineer. I worked there for 5 years before moving here. I always wanted to do a master's, but I kept delaying it because I already had a good career. Career wise, when you start working, when you work for these many years, it's little hard to get back into the academia. One thing is definitely if you have a master's degree from a reputed college, it is a deal breaker in the long term of your career as well. When you are not a really senior position, having a CMU degree is a deal breaker. One thing is that these three reasons compelled me to change tracks a little bit and go back to academia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Nebula Talk. I'm Sadhna. I lead the community initiatives at Nebula, and I'm your host for the day. We have an insightful session ahead where we'll discuss studying in the US and bagging admits at top US universities. But before we dive in, let me give you all a brief about what Nebula is and how Nebula supports international study and work aspirants. Nebula is a global community driven platform dedicated to fostering awareness, accessibility, and affordability for students and professionals aspiring to pursue their studies or work opportunities overseas. We achieve this by connecting individuals with a diverse network of international students, alumni, scholars, language and entrance exam trainers, and experts from allied fields. Through Nebula Talks, we share first hand experiences and advice from talented and enthusiastic international students and alumni. Today, we have with us here our newest Nebula mentor, Ankush. Ankush is currently pursuing his master's in software engineering at Carnegie Mellon University and has also been a research assistant there since January. He's got 5 years of experience at Salesforce as well. Ankush has a treasure of things to share about his journey to CMU and his experience as an international student in the US. So stay tuned throughout the talk. And if you have any questions that you want to be addressed during the talk, you can just put those questions in the chat box. So, welcome to the talk, Ankush. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining with us today. I know it's an early Friday morning and you have a lot on your plate, but the audience and I are super excited to hear from you. So, without any delay, we'll begin the talk. I have given a very brief introduction of you to the viewers, but please go ahead and tell us a little more about you.
Sure. So my name is Ankush. I'm currently pursuing Masters in Software Engineering at CMU. I just completed 3 semesters over here. My summer semester just ended yesterday. And before this, I was working at Salesforce in India in Hyderabad as a software engineer. I worked there for 5 years before moving here. And yeah, at CMU, I've also worked as a research assistant here for a bit. I worked for one or two semesters for that, and currently I'm working on my studio project as well as taking courses. So one more semester left for my graduation. So yeah, I'm set to graduate this year.
That's nice. I went through your profile actually. It's really impressive all the things that you've done. So my question is, you had a pretty good career at Salesforce. You were one of the senior professionals, and you've been working on so many interesting things. So what made you pursue another degree? Especially, what made you consider studying overseas?
So one is I wanted to move to the US. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously that's a very big reason for many
Mm-hmm.
people. And
Mm-hmm.
another reason is I always wanted to do a master's, but I kept delaying it because I already had a good career. So the perks I was getting at Salesforce and my job was also pretty interesting. So because of that reason, I always kept postponing it. So 1 year went by, 2 year went by, and like that, 5 years went by. And at one point, I decided that maybe I'll just try applying, and if I get into a good, really good reputed college, like CMU or Ivy Leagues or Stanford or something like that, I'll go for it. Otherwise, I'll not. So my decision-making process was very different than most people, I would say. This was my process. If I get into some very good college, I'll go. Otherwise, I thought I'll just take an L1 visa at Salesforce and I'll just go from a company transfer. So that was my thought process. And when CMU happened at that time, also I was really contemplating whether I should go for it or not, because career wise, when you start working, when you work for these many years, it's little hard to get back into the academia kind of a thing. So that way, but one thing is definitely if you have a master's degree from a reputed college, it is a deal breaker in the long term of your career as well. When you are not a really senior position, having a CMU degree is a deal breaker. One thing is that. Second is, even though I was doing well, I felt a sort of stagnation in my career growth, in my learning. So I wanted to break that. That was also one reason. So these three reasons compelled me to change tracks a little bit and go back to academia. So wanting to move to the US, and second, wanting to have a master's degree from a reputed college for long-term career growth, and third, also improve my learning and stay up to date, because software and computer science is such a field that is always updating. Last chat GPT, AI innovation happening, LLMs coming out every 6 months, you will see the entire landscape changes. So you have to be always updated and be on the track. So always want to also enhance my learning. So that was also one reason for this.
That's nice. And how's it going? Like, are you happy with the decision that you made?
Yeah, I mean, this was a really challenging part for me as well. CMU is really like the coursework and the project, everything is very demanding. So the amount of hours that I have to put in, or the amount of intellectual capacity it takes, is way more than I was doing at my job actually. So that way, it has really stretched me to do things that I have not done before. And it's been a really good learning experience in all dimensions, because the program I am in is not a pure academic program. It's a professional program, which is like a blend of managerial plus academic part. So it's like, you can think of it like an MBA plus masters mixed in. There are some courses which are leadership oriented courses, so it's like a blend of those areas. So I get to improve both of my skills. At the same time, being back to school is always nice. You get to network with a lot of people from different nationalities. CMU is a melting pot. Here you'll meet smartest people in the world, best faculty, best minds in the world. So that's another aspect of this, of being at CMU. And a lot of events happening. The exposure you get at CMU is unparalleled. So all in all, it's been a great experience.
That's amazing. So I'm going to break that down into two follow-up questions I have. So first, speaking of the experience, could you like tell us how different it is from your degree back in India? And of course, that was a bachelor's degree, but of course, you would have seen your friends pursue master's degrees, and the environment of the college in itself, the way teaching happens, and most importantly, being an international student, the kind of exposure you get with students from different nationalities. So how has your experience as a student been different from that of India?
Yeah, to answer it in very plain terms, how is a US university different from an India university? US has a lot more money. So infrastructure wise, there's no comparison to it. If you see CMU, what kind of infrastructure they have for computer science, they literally have their own data center, which means they have a whole rack of servers for students to do kind of computation they want to for advanced research purposes. And that's like a full da- data center, full size data center that a company would have, a proper big IT company would have. In India, my college didn't have such things. IITs do have some of those kind of infrastructure, but I did not have access to all these infrastructure level things in my college. One. Number two, the coursework here at CMU is very up to date and relevant to what we actually do at our jobs. It's not some very theoretical stuff that is um, not useful in your job actually. Second part is that you actually learn things that are useful for you, that will help you later on in your career. In India, I felt that most of the courses were very theoretical oriented, I don't even remember most of it. I do remember certain parts of it that I had to apply at my job, but most of it is all forgotten. So the sad part is in India, the curriculum revision doesn't happen as often. And then next part is the professors. So universities in in US, especially top universities, attract like the best minds in the world. People who have industry experience, they have been at the top careers in the industry, they choose to teach here. People who have been the best research, best minds in their fields are here. In India, that is not the case. In India, people who don't get anything else to do, they'll end up as professors. So, so because of that, there will be some really passionate professors in India as well, but the number will be very less. One or two professors only I remember from my bachelor's who were really passionate about what they are doing, what they are teaching, and really impacted me in some way. But here you'll find almost 80% professors are actually good who really leave an impact. So the ratio is much better. In India also, I'm not saying everyone is like that, but ratio is much better. Then the cohort, India, you're always with just Indian students, not much international exposure. Here you have people from all nationalities, and it's like a melting pot. So that exposure is very different. More, much smarter people around here. And then the way in India exam, like the coursework is very exam oriented. For all my courses in India, I had 70 marks for my end term exam, 30 marks for my midterm. That's all. 100 marks come from that. In here, the division is actually very useful, very in a very thoughtful manner. Final exam is just 20 to 30% of your score. Rest of it is the assignments and the projects that you work on. Apart from that, there are weekly quizzes, those add up, and there is some kind of peer review happening for some of your assignments that adds up. So the overall grading is in such a way that there's not entire focus is not on the exam, so that you actually learn throughout the course. Because even if you miss or slip one weekly assignment, your grade will fall. So you can't afford to miss any weekly assignment, and your coursework is like going like this. Every week on week, you're learning something which adds up. In India, it's just like you don't do anything, and only in the exam do this. Before that, you'll study, and only that matters because you just have to learn for the exam. So the way they have structured their courses is actually very useful. You remember what you learn because it's very hands-on. You can't like get through the assignments without understanding it because they are hard. It really challenges you to think and innovate.
That's really nice. I mean, I like how your answers are so candid, and that's what the students also expect. So, absolutely love that. So now, the second part of my follow-up question is, you also spoke about exposure, and you also spoke about different events, etc. So, as an international student, what are the different kinds of networking opportunities, or to participate in different extracurriculars, or does your coursework even leave you enough time to be involved in different activities, and is there an incentive to do that? So how's the scene, on that front?
So the time you will get for other things depends upon what kind of electives you take. There's a certain core part of your curriculum that you have to do. Electives is that you can choose the courses you can choose. So those courses are, if you take a very hard course, hard elective, it'll leave no time for other stuff. So which happened in one of my semesters. I was taking a hard elective, no time to do anything else. But if you take some relaxed courses for elective, then you'll have some time for doing a side project, working as a research assistant, things like that. And for networking, one thing is there are so one thing is networking with alumni. For that, their CMU hosts a lot of sessions. Alumni visits happen quite often here. That gives us a chance. My department hosts quite a lot of these sessions. That gives us a chance to do that. Second thing is there are career fairs where companies visit the campus, so you have a chance to get in touch with the HR, schedule an interview, and so on. If you're talking about the corporate kind of networking, then next thing is being a CMU alumni is a huge plus because when you reach out to other alumni on LinkedIn, they will respond to you because
Mhm.
they're also from CMU. That's also a very good good thing to networking, that you can reach out to people who are from CMU alumni on LinkedIn, and you will get a response from that. And I think these days everything is more digitalized, so best way to network is write a specific message to someone from whom you are seeking help. Let's say you are aspiring to be a product manager, and if you see someone who's from CMU and they are working as a product manager, you ask them that, okay, I'm an aspiring product manager, this is all what I'm doing, this is all my experience, can we connect to have some insights about this. So make a specific message to them. If you draft a very generic message, people might not be responsive enough. So if you reach out to someone with a specific, very specific message, they'll be interested to talk to you because they see that you have actually put an effort to um, kind of look through their profile and ask a specific question. So yeah.
That's nice. And did you apply to a lot of universities, or did you apply to a very few selected bunch of universities? And how do you go about choosing this? I mean, you always chase top universities, which you said at the beginning of the talk. But how did you decide what aligns with exactly what you want to pursue, and how many unis did you apply to?
So one thing is you always should make your application in three segments. One is that over kind of, which is over your bar. Second is that segment which you are kind of confident, 50 80% confident you'll get. Third is something that you're sure shot you'll get, so that you have a diverse pool of universities. So I split my application like that, three sections: high, medium, low, kind of. And then there is a very good website called CS Rankings.
Mm-hmm.
It's useful for people who are applying for computer science degrees. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure other degrees. So there you can select the kind of specialization you want to do, and it will show you what top universities are there for that specialization, because it filters based upon the research publications
Mm-hmm.
in top journals, and there are certain other parameters. It's a very unbiased result.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everywhere else, every university claims that they are the top one. So most of these blogs, I feel they're biased, but this website I found it's very unbiased. So I heavily used it in my applications,
Mm-hmm.
where the specialization that I want to pursue, where the best of it is offered. And then next thing is obviously the websites of each of these universities. They have listed their curriculum in great detail. So you should thoroughly go through that and see what interests you and what do you want to pursue. And this research of going through different university website, listing out their curriculum, finalizing, this is in itself a very long process. So if you're planning to apply, your first step should be at least spend couple of months in this process in narrowing down your list. Because for undergrad applications, there is something like a common app where you can just apply for many different universities in just one application. But grad applications are more specific. There's no common app here. In India, you just give one gate exam and you apply for all the colleges through that. Here, it's not like that. Your application has to be specific for every university. So this research process of going through different universities is very crucial if you want to land into something that is most appropriate for you.
And how long did the entire application process take you?
So for me, I did start late. I
Mm-hmm.
actually just started. I would say entire thing took me 6 to 8 months.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I would advise that you should at least take 1 to 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I did not give myself that much time, and that is one of the things I would have done differently looking back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just give myself applied in that 6 month period, and whatever I got, I went for it.
And
Already,
you did all of it by yourself.
yeah. I did not do any counseling and all that because I already had a lot of friends who had done masters. So I
Mm-hmm.
just reached out to them and got my SOP reviewed with my friends, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that really helped me.
All right, that's really nice. And of course, a lot of mainstream consultants wouldn't also assist you in applying to Ivy leagues and universities like CMU, etc. So for all the viewers, especially if you're targeting, if your target is really good universities and top universities, you can always connect with mentors on the platform, or coaches who can connect you with mentors. So speaking with mentors who've had that experience firsthand is definitely beneficial. That's what we tell all our users as well. So it's great that you also mentioned how starting early is important, and about CS rankings, because sometimes when we are talking to students and we're talking about certain universities, they would have just found some ranking mentioned on the university website, or something they found on websites that
That
are
was again.
aggregators of, yeah, that are aggregators of different universities, and they sort of buy that, but what they don't know is most of these rankings universities pay and participate to be in a certain league, and most of these ranking sample size is also much lesser, and the depth of what they're ranking it on is also not that great. So there's very few websites or rankings or scores that students can trust, and of course that depends on the geography, the program, and which one to choose based on that. So just be careful out there is what we tell all our students. Now, coming to your role as a research assistant at CMU, how did you manage to bag the position? Because of course it would have been super competitive, and of course you would have had to do a lot of planning and a tactical approach to actually get that position. So how did you manage to get it, and how has your experience been, and how is it beneficial to your profile in comparison to other students who are probably doing part-time jobs, or internships with external entities?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so one is, of course, how did you approach the whole process of, applying and getting the research assistantship? And second thing is, how has that, or how does that add to your profile, overall profile, as compared to students who are doing, let's say, part-time jobs outside of the university?
Yeah, so definitely, I would say if you have to do some job, it's better to take a job which will be more in align with the career that you're going to pursue later on, right? Because that experience will help you learn something that you can apply later. Also, add to your resume that someone might find attractive later on, and it's a much better experience, I would say, than working outside part time. So, and for applying for the RA, so CMU has an internal portal called Handshake where they post all of the openings and various labs, RA opening, TA opening, all of that. So I just applied on that platform and I got a call from one of the uh, lab professors for that. And another thing is there are various different labs have their own websites. So there also they list their openings, and you can find that and then reach out to individual professors, and if they find your profile good, they'll probably reach out. So I always recommend to get an on-campus job rather than working outside part-time. It saves time also,
Mm-hmm.
and and if that on-campus job is in align with your career, like my RA job was like working on working with working with Honda. to develop their test pipeline for testing automation car and things like that. So it was a very interesting project, and it also is aligned with what I'm doing otherwise in my career as a backend software engineer and things like that. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's nice. That's really interesting. And now moving on to my next question. This is also one of my favorite questions because every mentor that I talk to has, a whole different perspective, and even I get to learn a lot along with the attendees. So you've been at CMU for a while now as an international student. So if you were to advise students that are aspiring to study abroad, now, this will be a huge change on various levels. One is, how the university itself works, and then you're in a whole different location, so your living, situation will also need to be, adjusted in different ways. So, as an international student, to students that are aspiring to move to an international destination, especially the US, what are certain things that you would advise that these are the mistakes that you just cannot do? These are the mistakes that that are pretty common for an international student to do, so you can avoid it based on experience, either their preparation or after they've landed. It could be anything.
mistakes. I don't know what mistakes people are doing.
I mean, it doesn't have to be like mistake. It's also, generally, these are the things that you can keep in mind to have a, easier transition, or, a more fulfilling experience.
So one thing is, life in US is very different than life in India,
Mm-hmm.
because one thing is, for me, I moved to a city in Pittsburgh. I don't have any friends over here in this city, so I didn't
Mm-hmm.
actually know anyone over here. No relatives, no friends.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a backup, like if you kind of move to a city where you know someone, where you have some friends or relatives, that will be actually good
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
have a backup. So if I was in a place probably somewhere in the West Coast, I would have had friends in Seattle or somewhere in California. I was also applying there, but I didn't get a good university over there. So my first preference is actually going to a place where I know a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Probably
Mm-hmm.
that's also one thing to consider, that you should kind of have some, some people that will be good. Then second thing is, I knew a couple of people from a couple of friends who were around in Midwest and those kind of areas. Like I know one guy who was in Purdue University.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a really hard time over there because Midwest is a very not a very good place to live as compared to probably area like Pittsburgh or somewhere. Even in West Coast is better. So everything is very far away. Public transport is not good, and you have to walk a lot and all of that. Pittsburgh is a very good city in terms of, one, quality of life is good. Two,
Mm-hmm.
it's not very expensive. Rent is not very expensive if you compare it with New York or somewhere LA. If you go to some place like let's say USC, University of Southern California, or UCLA, the rent in LA is too high. You'll have to live in an accommodation like sharing kind of thing. You
Mm-hmm.
three people in one room, people are living like that. So if you are in a cheaper, affordable city, your quality of life will be better as an international student. Don't I didn't want to go to an expensive city actually. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I did apply to Columbia in New York, but that was not my first preference because of I didn't want that quality of life as an international student. New York is very expensive, and
Mm-hmm.
Colombia is in that kind of area where the rent around that area is very expensive. So you have to live far away and all that. I'm living very near to CMU, literally 5-10 minutes walk from CMU. That's a big plus of living in an affordable city.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't consider all these things. This
Mm-hmm.
automatically kind of I got the right thing for myself. Now I'm here, so I realized that uh, I wouldn't have had such a smooth transition if I was in a place which is not very easy to live. Like Pittsburgh is a very safe city, one of the safest cities in the USA. But in US, it's not like that. All places are not safe. Like my friend, she was in USC. It's very unsafe to even step out of the campus area because LA is not safe at all, and there are a lot of problem with homeless, drug, and all those problems. So you should always survey, know a little more about the place that you're going to move to. Like I researched about Pittsburgh a little bit, but not very thorough. But I'm glad I landed in a safe place, which is actually livable. But only after coming here, when I traveled a little bit, talked to a couple of people, I realized that US is not like India. India, more or less, I would say everywhere it's way more safer than in US. We have that kind of image because of media and all that, but in India, if you step out at night, in most places, I think it's fine. But in US, some places are fine, some places are clearly very bad. So you should research thoroughly about what kind of place you want to live in, and obviously you don't have much choice because it depends upon the acceptance you'll get from universities. But then even after you get an acceptance, it can help you make a decision based upon. So your decision should, but from the kind of university, should also consider the place that you're going to move to. That's one thing.
All right, those were very helpful. Thank you for those. Now, moving on to a last couple of questions before we take questions from the audience. I know we are going a little overboard on time. So, my last question to you is: does the university, what kind of support does the university offer in terms of placements? I mean, of course, I know placements are not a thing in the West, and most of it depends upon how you build your profile and what you do. But is there anything at all that the university helps you with, and how can you as an international student over the course of your study period build your profile good enough to actually land jobs that you're targeting?
So in India, it's very different. Of course, companies will come to campus. You get interview right in the campus itself, get a job. Here, those things are not facilitated. You mostly have to apply by your own. But there are a lot of things that they facilitate. One is career fairs. Companies will visit. You can. There is a portal called Handshake already. There you'll have all the listings of companies who are visiting on a particular day. You can list out the companies that you want to apply to, reach out to them in the career fair, and that can help you get interviews. They'll not have interviews on the spot in the career fair, but at least land you an interview that you can go forward from that. One thing is that. Second is the alumni. They'll host sessions with alumni and all that. In that, you can, which can help you connect to that alumni and probably get a referral and all of that. And third thing, they have a CPDC, Career Professional Development Center department, which will help you for kind of making a profile, finalizing your resume, and sometimes also help get a job in case like for example, I knew a couple of people who couldn't really get a job when the program ended. So university helped them give an on-campus job for some time, for a few months until they landed the actual job. So they also help with that because there is a period in which you have to find a job, otherwise your time, some few months for OPT and all that. So that way, university is pretty helpful in various things. They'll give you a probably RATA kind of job also if you need some more time in finding a job. So that way they're helpful. But again, it's not like India. In India, it was way more easier. Like my Salesforce job also was on campus. I got hired on campus, so I didn't have to do much effort actually in India. But here I have to do a lot more effort actually to find a job. So
Yep, I mean, I think it is very important for every student that's flying abroad to know this, because if they go with the same expectation of, getting spoon fed with placements
yeah,
like here, then they'll have a very hard time. So,
yeah.
thanks for that. And, I really learned a lot of things through this conversation that I had with you. Now, we're towards the last segment where we're picking up a few questions from the audience chat. Sandhya has a question. She asks, how did you manage your finances? What advice do you have for budgeting and financing while studying abroad?
So one thing is estimate your monthly expenses before you're moving to a place. Estimate. how much rent you'll have in this place to pay, how much you'll be spending grocery and all that, and have an idea in mind about how much your monthly expenses are going to be, and calculate how much money you'll need for living in that for whatever period your program is, and then calculate your fees and just have a idea in mind that okay, this is how much I'm going to spend, so that there are no surprises later about the cost of living and all that. And once you have an estimate in mind, then you decide that how much of it is going to be your loan amount, or how much you're going to be paying from the saving and all of that. And then you can also estimate, let's say you're applying for an on-campus job, you can estimate this is how much it pays, and I'll be able to get my monthly expenses sorted with this job, so this much is spending for me. If you have that kind of job already before, some people all apply for TA positions even before moving, they might get something, so that might help. Some universities waive off the fee if you're working as a TA. For example, I know Georgia Tech waives off the fees entirely if you're working as a TA. So that can be a huge plus plus. Most public universities do that. CMU is a private university. Here they do not waive off your fee if you're working as a TA, but this just the salary stipend you'll get as a TA. So also look for those kind of things. If you see that working as a TA, you get your fee waived off, then your expenses will come down drastically. So that's one thing also I would say you should consider, that if you are having financially your budget, you are in a certain tight budget, then aim for public universities, because one, their fees is also lesser. Two, they have lot more benefits. If you work there as a TA, they will waive off your fee, they will give you free accommodation, so your rent is saved. So many benefits they have, public universities. So living expense wise, a public university is much better than a private university. And yeah, that's all for me. I planned accordingly. uh, CMU, I didn't get any scholarship, and also I didn't get my fee also waived off, so I have to pay the entire fee. So I planned accordingly how much amount I could pay from my saving, then little bit I took from my parents and all that.
All right. Moving on to the next question. I mean, you just mentioned about scholarships. So, Richie has a question that, I'm aiming for a possible full ride scholarship. Does the university offer any? Or are there other places I can look for? Do you have any advice on what specific steps I can take to improve my chances?
So there are three kind of scholarships. One is you'll get directly from the university. They'll directly waive off your fee. Maybe they'll say, okay, pay 50% of your fee if they really like your profile. Second is government scholarship. The Fulbright and all these are government scholarships. These are not university offered scholarships. So there's a separate application for that. University application scholarship is along with your university as a like main application. Government application is separate. Then there are certain private scholarships, which are like private funds, private companies offering scholarships, right? So that is also a separate application. You'll have to research on that. And then there is like um, if you get a TARA, you get your fee waived off. Then there is that kind of assistantship. So, and that will differ from college to college. So you'll have to research for each college. One is that, and second, let's say you're applying for a PhD program. So that is entirely covered. PhD, they have a stipend, and your expenses are all covered. So in PhD, you don't have to spend anything, and you also get your stipend, so your expenses are also taken care of. So one thing is that. And to enhance your scholarship chances, if you have a good research profile, good amount of publications, then you are a good candidate for scholarship. I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so I was just saying there's a bunch more questions, but those can be converted into quests, and the students can get the answers later. We can take one last question because I also like this question. Did you have a hard time socializing or just transitioning and adjusting to the environment in your initial couple of days when you first moved?
Yeah, definitely. I remember. one day some courier guy calling me, some of my courier is not delivered, and I couldn't understand the accent what he's saying. I asked him to repeat 3 times, and third time he hung up the call on me. So, that 1 month was like this speak so fast, and the accent sometimes I had a hard time understanding. So that will happen. And then there are certain cultural shocks you'll get here because the way people do things are very different. I remember going to um was that I think a dental clinic or something. I told her something and she was like, okay, in US people do not multitask. They'll do one thing at a time. India, we are so used to multitasking, we're doing 10 things at a time, switching context all the time, but here one thing at a time. So that was also a shock for me. Like if you tell people to do one thing, they'll be like, no, let me finish this first. So then next thing is India is a very high context culture. US is a low context culture. That means India is a lot more about people, family, their position, role. US is more about individuality, individual focus culture. There are boundaries. You in India you can literally talk anything with everyone, and there is a lot more ease in which you can approach people. Here, people will be very friendly. Like walking on the street, people will say hi, hello to you, smile, and all of that. But at the same time, there's certain boundaries. You just literally can't say inappropriate things to people. So you have to be mindful of that. And because it's a very individualistic culture. So I would say watch some American shows and all of that. Get used to the American thing and have an idea of what to expect. So there were cultural shocks for me, but you get used to that very soon. So in 2 3 months I was kind of used to okay what to expect.
All right. Though that was, a really good session. I'm pretty sure everybody that attended have gotten a lot of things that they can take back home, and I'm pretty sure it'll help them in planning their education in the US better. So everybody that is still watching, for more personalized advice, for more advice and directions based on your profile and your goals and your needs, please go ahead and connect with Ankush. He has a lot of personal guidance sessions listed on his profile. You can just book one of his sessions where he will be dedicating the 30 or 45-minute time slot to answer your questions based on your profile. Because this session was more to give you an understanding of the overall journey, but to get your questions answered based on the context of your own profile and your own needs and goals. You'll have to talk to one of the mentors that you find relevant for your profiles personally. So please go connect with Ankush and please drop your questions in his DM, even if there isn't a service listed on his profile for something specific that you are looking for, let's say your SOP review or guidance on how to apply for XYZ scholarship. You can just DM him and just check with him, hey, Ankush, would you be able to help me with this? And I'm sure he'll definitely respond to you. And, you can also connect with me if you don't know which mentor to connect with based on your profile, and I'll definitely help you connect with the right mentor. Coming back to Ankush, once again, Ankush, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. And any closing remarks, anything you want to say to the students?
Yeah, I would say all the best in your applications. You'll do well. US has a lot to offer. So yeah, fulfill your American dream.
All right, then. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining, and thanks, Ankush. And I will see you all next week with another Nebula talk. Bye bye.